Hey, how you doing? Today I'm going to talk about a problem that we've all had if you shot with more than one camera. So here's the scenario. You take the photos, you shoot on two cameras, or maybe you have a second shooter, and you all get the shots. And once all the shots are done, you import them into Lightroom. And once they're in Lightroom, then you get this sort of scenario. All the images are kind of out of order. Let me show you. What we've got in front of us here is a shoot that I did with Sandra and Peter. They're from Norway. And we shot on 4 cameras in the end. Jeremy had a 5D Mark III, 1DX Mark II, very nice toy. And I'm shooting on 2 Fuji X-T2s. One of the problems though is that none of the cameras have got their clocks set correctly, and this means that when you import all the images into Lightroom, you get this scenario starting to happen. So if you have a look at the shoot here, we've got the rings going on, we've got another shot of the rings going on, then we've got the first kiss, and then we've got another shot of the rings going on. And this is essentially because the time clock on all of the cameras is not correctly set. So it's really important that all of the times on the cameras are identical and best set to a master clock. In other words, whatever source you use to set one camera, you use the same source to set all of the cameras. And this could be done with a smartphone, digital app on a smartphone, or even a watch with a second meter, second hand should I say. And you can do that, and then you can sit there and you can get all the cameras right, and you can basically just go into the time and you can make adjustments, and it will be amazing, and that will be fantastic. By the way, and when you do this, it can work really, really nicely. However, I found that the Canon cameras tend to drift horrendously. Now these guys don't make timepieces, so really no big deal, but it is kind of shocking just how far they drift. Even in a week they can drift 15 seconds, which is nuts. So every single time you do a shoot, you end up having to go through this whole palaver. But there is a much easier way, actually. You don't even need to worry about setting the time on your camera. So what you're going to need is a smartphone with a digital clock app, of course the cameras that are going to be taking all the photographs, and then of course the Lightroom filter. So you need to obviously be using Lightroom or something that can filter each camera out and the capture time, or edit the metadata. And by metadata inside Lightroom you can actually edit the capture time. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Actually no, I lie. I knew that. So the trick is quite simple. All you're going to do is prior to the shoot, or even after the shoot, doesn't really matter, you can take a picture with each specific camera of your timepiece, just as I'm doing right now. You can even do this after the fact, without the fact. But the most important thing is it must always be the same timepiece, because that is essentially your master. Now, one of these is going to drift a heck of a lot less than the Canon. So in my case, I just use my phone with a digital app. When I had an iPhone, same story. There's loads of various apps that you can put on. Seconds are important. And then in this particular case with Jeremy, who I did the shoot with, all that I did was basically go, cool, right, Jeremy, point your camera at this. Got the app up, and he just took a photograph, so that when I got all of those files from him, I then could basically go into Lightroom and do the following. First thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get all of your pictures up, which is pretty much obvious. Once you've imported all your photographs, they're all going to show up, right? But there's a little trick. We need to isolate the photographs from each camera. And once we've got those, then we then use the timepiece photograph, and we use that as our master clock and set the time. Now that sounds really complicated. I promise you it really isn't. It's a really handy, nifty trick that is easy as pie to do. So let's actually go here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure I can see all of my pictures. I'm going to go into my G mode. G mode is the library. And once I'm in G mode, I'm going to go to backslash. Backslash, when you're in library, will bring up the filter options within Lightroom. These are very, very powerful and can be really handy for isolating certain things and certain cameras, right? In this case, I'm going to click on the metadata link. Now that I have the metadata link in front of me, I can see that I've got 3 cameras. I've actually got 4 cameras, and I'll get into that in a minute. I've got a Canon EOS 5D Mark III, a Canon EOS 1DX Mark II, and an X-T2. But in actual fact, I'm shooting with 2 X-T2s, and they can be, and in fact are, not exactly synced together in terms of master clock time. right? So how do I make sure that I get the pictures specifically from each of the X-T2 cameras? Well, there are two ways I can do it. I can select the X-T2, and in my particular case, what I do is I shoot with only one lens or set of lenses on one of the cameras, and then generally only shoot with a long lens on the other cameras. I've got X-T2, and I can see all the lenses that we used with these two cameras. And in this case, if I choose the 16 to 55, I know that because of the way that I shot, I only used that specific lens. So what have I done? I've actually isolated that specific camera. Now, if you look in front of me, you'll see that there are two timepiece photographs. The only reason they're two, by the way, is because I did a double. I was in rapid for some reason. Doesn't matter. Now that I've isolated my camera, I'm going to select the timepiece picture, and then I'm going to go Control A. I guess Command A in Mac. I don't know. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go to Metadata in the menu, and I'm going to go to Edit Capture Time. If I look at my timing, from the original, it is 3:04:30, but the timing on the digital clock photograph is 3:05:48. All I have to do is match those up. So I'm going to go 3:05 and 48 and go Change All. Now, the really cool thing about Lightroom is what it's going to do is it's going to calculate a difference. It's not going to set all of the photographs to that time. It's going to calculate the difference from when the first picture was taken, say 30 seconds for argument's sake, and then it's going to apply that 30 seconds to each of the pictures. And what it's now going to do is actually going to calculate them relatively. That's very cool. So now I've done that. Now I'm going to carry on with each of the four cameras. I'm going to do the same with my long lens. Remember, I select the X-T2, and now I select the lens specific to the camera. But what happens if I was putting multiple lenses on each of the cameras? So for example, I don't know and I cannot separate those cameras by lenses. That is actually not a problem, because you can actually use a custom filter that will allow you to separate cameras by the serial number, which is flipping handy. So that's another way of doing it. I generally don't do it like that because I don't have to, because I know the way that I shoot. But in my case, I'm going to go back to the long lens. I know that's the 50 to 140. Remember, you select your timepiece photo first, Control A, and now we go to Metadata, and it is Edit Capture Time, 3:06:03, 3:06:03, and Change All. And you repeat this procedure through all of the cameras. What I did in Jeremy's case is at the end of the shoot, because I'd actually forgotten to take these pictures, is at the end of the shoot I actually got him to take the photographs. So it doesn't really matter. All that you're doing is you're essentially using your digital timepiece to ensure that those pictures are synced to one time source. So even if that time source was an hour later or 3 hours forward or another date, doesn't matter. If that was the same time source, the calculation will still occur that all of the pictures, when you sort by capture time, will all be in order. Now, one very important thing that you really must do is that when you are finished this process, you must reset the filter. Otherwise, when you come back into Lightroom, you could end up with a whole bunch of pictures and go, hang on, where are all the other photographs? Because that filter literally locks everything else out. And that's pretty easy, because up in the top hand corner, you've got custom filter, and then you have an option that basically says filters off. Now all of the pictures are showing, which is fantastic, and you'll see that if I go back to those original files that I selected, here they are. G goes to library, N goes to loop mode, however many pictures you've got selected will show up all at once. Tab, by the way, will actually remove the side menus. Very cool. So as you can see, the order now is rings going on, still rings going on, and first kiss. All of the order is restored. And it's as easy as that.